Greetings, everyone. Nathan Nerdarchy here from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with some nerds.
Nerdarchy's Dave.
Nerdarchy's Ted.
And today we're going to talk about bookkeeping at the table.
Hey guys, perhaps you've noticed these awesome t-shirts we're wearing from ArmorClass10.com. An official Nerdarchy sponsor. You can grab your awesome gaming shirt from the link down below, ArmorClass10.com. Don't dress like an NPC.
All right, so today we're going to talk about bookkeeping at the table.
Okay.
And really, it's about being prepared and having not only yourself, but the things you need at the table ready to go when it's time to start chucking dice.
No. Go ahead.
I would also say it's about during the game, having the game run more smoothly by writing the things down or having other people write them down for you when you need them so you can reference them quickly instead of sitting and going, what was that thing again? Or
Now, in Pathfinder or 3rd edition, this is kind of hellacious when your player shows up to the table and his character's not leveled up or ready, or maybe he even lost his character sheet and has to be recreated. First level, not a big deal. Second level, go in the second level, not so bad, not so much of a problem. 10th level character, whole cloth, huge problem. Or, having to make a ton of changes to your character, also problematic. Now, in a rules light system like 5th edition and some of the other ones out there, it's a little less of a pain in the ass, but it's still a good idea to be ready to go and have your character ready. Now, I'm guilty of this often, of leveling up as we get started. But yeah, it's just good gaming etiquette and respectful to your DM.
Right. So, first and foremost, character sheet. Is it prepared? Is it ready to go? Do you have whatever notes that you're going to use or that you have been taking so that you are properly aware of what's going on? Sometimes people make lists for character goals, and I've seen that both at the table and online games. This allows, not only you to remember what it is that you want to accomplish, but then you could literally read that list off of, oh, this is the thing that my character is thinking of ahead of time to your DM so that he knows, oh, well, here's possible plot hooks that I can lay out there that's going to seed for this particular character.
Yeah, to that end, you could even have someone who's kind of their job, like the chronicler, who, I don't know, maybe the DM gives them extra inspiration or extra XP, but because they come to the table and they keep track of everything that's going on and then disperse it to the rest of the table, so everyone has notes, and it's the same notes too.
Right.
Instead of them being jumbled all over the place. Like in your group, we have Kurt,
right,
who is awesome, who does a write up every session about what happened.
Right.
another thing he helps do is when we have a big treasure hoard that we get from Ted when he's the DM, is that we'll talk about it in a group online, normally Facebook or something like that, and he'll have a big spreadsheet of all the different treasure, and we're kind of made an agreement, we'll divide it up as we see fit, and so no one's sitting there for an hour figuring out who's getting what and what's going on.
Let's argue over the treasure rather than get into the plot and story.
Yeah, so we'll argue offline, online, away from the game.
Yeah, well, then that just keeps things moving, and it's also a good thing. And thankfully, we have that. You can do that, whether it's through a messenger like Facebook or Twitter or using email or whatever, or a group text, on your phones. It doesn't really matter. Anything that just facilitates this, and you can do it away from the table and
right.
just keep playing the game.
So when it comes to having your sheet at the table, number one is going to determine what level of tech is allowed at your table. So if you're running off of a laptop, well, then your character sheet's there. Just make sure you have your laptop. You can be able to have it updated and done whatever way. If you're using paper product, well, then by all means, just make sure you've got a folder or some way of storing your stuff. And you always make sure, well, I'm gaming, I'm going to make sure I grab that.
Also, too, in this digital age, I feel like most people anymore, even if they have a paper character sheet, I feel like they do it on a PDF anyway.
The form fillable, yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. So a good tip would be have all your players send the character to you. So you as the GM have updated characters, and just in case someone shows up and they forgot their character, maybe it's just a matter of being able to hit the print button or or someone else actually having access to the character sheet on a computer, something like that. You could actually, this is a problem that we used to have in in the olden days that can actually be circumnavigated. And now also, like, that brings up like another thing. Like, I've heard of DMs being like, oh, I have a player that won't show me their character sheet, which is weird, but
Yeah, that's one I'm not overly familiar with. That's kind of weird.
What is it, like a charm against metagaming from the DM? I mean, they're gonna do that anyway if they want,
right. So
Like,
in that instance, I'd be like, well, if I don't have your character sheet, then your character doesn't exist in this world. I am God.
oh, what skills do you have? Next session, what's your stats?
That's too much of a pain in the ass. I'd rather punch somebody in the face at that point. Throw them out.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, that's.
You shouldn't have to go through that.
Playing discovery as the DM for the characters. I mean, if you wanted to play a game of that would be kind of interesting. But it would get old pretty quick if you had to do it every session, figuring somebody out.
Well,
for every player.
Yeah, for every player.
Well, yeah. I mean, if every player's doing that, then it's like, well, what are you not trusting? What is it? What is it about my DMing style that you feel it's afraid to share your character sheet with me? I just assumed that was one player who was just being a teabag or something.
And as I mentioned earlier, with the keeping records during the game, assigning someone to track everybody's initiative would be really helpful, as well as when tracking hit points. I like to start. You have the maximum hit point, and then you take hit point damage, but I don't actually subtract it until it's like, oh, the battle's over and I'm kind of just stuck here. I add up all the damage so that I know, well, as it gets closer to my maximum hit points.
You have two numbers you're looking at.
Yeah.
What you have, what you're down and what you have.
Yeah. I've always done that. Say you've got 100 hit points and you've taken 37 points of damage, I say minus 37. And then when those two numbers meet, I'm down.
The reason why you do that is because it's the right way.
And same for monsters. If I know it has 160 hit points, I'll be like, oh, I took 5 damage, so now it's 5, 10, 38. And then once it gets to 160, I know he's done.
Done, yeah. Or you just do them like, whose line is it anyway? It's about right. I think he should be dead. But yeah, no, definitely. Initiative tracker, chronicle, or these having those people at the gaming table can be really useful. Someone else could even do the treasure. Instead of putting it all of the chronicle and the treasure in one spot, that would further diversify and split it up. And then some of these can be jobs that people are willing to do when you're not gaming as well. If you guys are doing maps, it might be you could have another person that draws the map so the players don't get lost. Depending on what style of game you're playing.
So now the other thing that you want to look at is the prep on the DM. Now this is a whole nother ball of wax because every DMing style is different. Now some people, they want to plot and plan every little nuance, nook and cranny, and others are like myself that tend to do a lot more on the fly. I've said many times that I typically run an entire session, an evening's worth of gaming off of just a sentence or two, and I'm good to go. Well, if you can't handle that kind of stuff and you have a problem doing stuff on the fly, even rolling things on your random tables, you could roll that up ahead of time so that you could have that figured out. If you roll treasure randomly, having things rolled out in advance, you're still rolling randomly. You're just having that done ahead of time so that, number one, the things at the table are handled expediently, and you also then, no one else sees the rolls, so you have the ability to be like, well, I don't really want that magic item in my game, or I think that, is unbalancing, so I'm going to ignore that result and move on to the next one.
Yeah, so basically, for DMs, how much paperwork, how much prep should you have? And the answer is whatever you need to run the session, and it's different for everybody. You just need to know as the DM what your comfort level is, how your games run, what makes them run smoother. If you're not good at coming up with NPC names on the fly, having a list to pick from will make things a lot easier. If there's a handy dandy chart right on the DM screen where you can kind of like roll and make them up randomly. So if you, like Ted said, you could just do that beforehand, if that's going to make your game run smoother. Me personally, a lot of times I just pull them out of the air and write them down as I go. But you know, it all depends on your DM style and what your comfort levels. Some DMs have a lot of anxiety about running the game, so the more things that they're going to have to think about on the fly is probably going to escalate that. And one of the ways to kind of like bring it down for them is having the information ready to go and be like they just need to go to the spot where they wrote it, and it'll help them with their flow.
Now, one pitfall with dealing with excuse me. Now, one pitfall with dealing with writing down too much information is being too attached to that information, and then you've got the issue of you have the issue of wanting to put that information forward, even if the players are not into going that way. So, I mean, if you want them to talk to a specific NPC or things like that.
Well, you know what that would come down to. Like, I think here's like an idea to dovetail to that is when one of the things that should happen when you're done gaming is, as the DM, you should you have your end of session bookkeeping, right?
Mhm.
Kind of like what happened, what notes you might need for your next session, and taking all that information that you never used and moving it to someplace else so that you can maybe have a chance to use it later. But I think if in your mind you're like, okay, you know what, I didn't use it this session, but in my end of game post prep, I am going to take that information and put it somewhere else. It might be like the saving grace for the DM who goes, okay, I didn't waste my time.
Well, you're world building pretty
Yeah.
much at that point.
Well, and that is the power of the DM, is to literally, move and do things. If you lay out a battle map and it has more than the room that they're in, you're potentially giving away things that are there. Literally, in my last session, I had 2 doors that they could go through. And in my mind, they were going to go through both doors, because that was what I had done. Didn't matter which direction they did them, they were going to encounter them in the order that I wanted, so that they went through my prep. They had no clue. It was just what it was. They decided they got to one. I think this one might be going forward. Let's backtrack and go look at that one. Okay, switch rooms. They don't know. Fun. No problems.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen until it happens.
Right.
So it's easy enough to move your notes around and change where your bookkeeping is, and just flip flop.
And you can literally do that on the fly, as I did, in my last session. Or if it's something that requires far more moving around, you can literally, as Dave says, do that post game. Okay, well, they decided to go right. I had this whole thing on the left. All right, well, let's shift this out here, and now it's on the other side, or vice versa. And
or like you can go back, like I said about the post game, bookkeeping. You could go back to that and go, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I'm going to have another adventure here at some point. And now they're going to have a reason to go back because this stuff wasn't done. What are the consequences of that? Is perhaps they just created another adventure for another night for you to run. And I feel like too, when you can bring them back to a location they've been to before, it really does like reaffirm that your world is a real place, because it's like otherwise what happens is, if you ever played the video game where you like go through the screen, especially like side scrollers, like, and it doesn't exist anymore, everything behind you. Well, tabletop role-playing games can kind of be like that if you never go back to places you've already been.
Right.
So it gives them it might give you a new story to tell as the DM.
And you can reuse all the notes and material that you had of that place from previous.
Well, and
adventures.
it also builds relationships, and you can have NPCs that the players then have a fondness for, and potentially it could lead to marriages or unions or whatever terminology you want to use, and you have characters that are really building.
Good. Sorry.
You have characters that are really building a world that they're a part of.
That reminded me of a good point. If the players seem at all interested in an NPC, write the NPC down. Because if it's not recorded, you're gonna be like, well, I think I remember his name and what he said he did and who his wife was or whatever. So I mean, most likely, if your character showed enough interest in that, they're probably going to remember more facts about the NPC than you did at the time. Especially if they were just like a poof. Oh, here's the blacksmith and he's got a quirky personality,
Right.
And they just happen to really like that guy and they want to go back to him.
Well, I always try, like, even if I make it up on the fly, I always try and make those notes anyway, just in
Yes.
case. Yeah. The problem is when the notes get jumbled. So that's where like your post game bookkeeping can be really important. Is when you disseminate all that information and kind of like organize it so that you have it to use when you need it later on.
Yeah, so, figure out what kind of, bookkeeping, note taking works best for you, whether you have, a Google Doc, a single DM notebook, some kind of Word doc on your screen,
Scissors and tape.
whatever works best for you.
Index cards. I used to love.
Oh
index
yeah,
cards.
Dave is, was a big proponent of that back in the day. But work on that, because that's the best way you can be like, well, crap, I really need to find those guys' names. What is that? Where do I have it? And you want to avoid the scourge of looking around to try and find that lost information. So if you want to continue the conversation down below, and share your awesome secrets with everyone, while you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
And make sure to check out armorclass10.com, where you can find awesome gaming shirts. Don't dress like an NPC.
You can tweet at us over on Twitter.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.